In this lecture, we are going to learn about pharmacotherapy of glaucoma. So let us first start with what actually glaucoma is. Glaucoma is actually a group of disease characterized by a progressive form of optic nerve damage. And this optic nerve damage is generally but not necessarily associated with increased intraocular pressure. Intraocular pressure more than 21 mmHg. And this increased intraocular pressure actually leads to of the retina and optic nerve, causing progressive permanent loss of eyesight if it is left untreated. So this increase in intraocular pressure actually happens due to malformation or malfunction of the aqueous production or aqueous humor drainage. So overall, glaucoma is actually characterized by three characteristic features. The first is the increased intraocular pressure. The second is the increased intraocular pressure leading to optic nerve damage and cupping of the disc, and ultimately leading to progressive permanent loss of eyesight if it is not treated at the right time. So, what are the treatment options for glaucoma? The treatment options for glaucoma are either the medical treatment option, or in some cases of acute congestive glaucoma, the surgical therapy or the laser therapy are the treatment option. And the overall goal is to reduce the intraocular pressure before it starts causing uh, the damage to the vision. So how you will treat glaucoma? You can treat glaucoma by either decreasing the production of aqueous humor, or by increasing the outflow of aqueous humor, or both by decreasing the production of aqueous humor and by increasing the outflow of aqueous humor. Because in the first slide itself we were discussing that uh, the increase in intraocular pressure is actually either due to malformation uh, or certain defect in aqueous humor production or aqueous humor outflow. So the we can decrease intraocular pressure either by decreasing the production of aqueous humor or by increasing the aqueous humor outflow, or by the combination of both the mechanism. So you can decrease the production by blocking the mechanism of production, and you can increase the outflow of aqueous humor through the trabecular meshwork or through the uvoscleral channel. So, if you closely see the broad categories of drugs that is used in the treatment of glaucoma, they can be divided into categories such as the first category of drug which decreases the aqueous secretion, and the second category of drug that increases the aqueous outflow, and we can also uh, uh, say that the third category exists of a drug which decreases both aqueous secretion and also at the same time it also increases the aqueous outflow. In that third category of drugs which have both combination of management, we can put a category of drug known as alpha agonist. So the first category of drug that decreases the aqueous secretion consists of beta blocker, the non-selective ones such as timolol, very commonly used drug in cases of glaucoma, and then the recent addition is the cardioselective beta blocker such as betaxolol. And then the second category of drug which decreases the aqueous secretion is carbonic anhydrase uh, inhibitors such as acetazolamide, dorzolamide, or brinzolamide. And then the second category of drug which increases the aqueous outflow either by increasing the trabecular outflow or by increasing the uvoscleral outflow. In this category we have drug known as miotics or parasympathomimetics such as pilocarpine or physostigmine, which uh, mainly increases the trabecular outflow. And then we have drugs which increases the uvoscleral outflow such as prostaglandin analogs such as latanoprost and bimatoprost. And then we have a category of drug which is known as alpha agonist, both non-selective alpha agonist as well as the alpha 2 selective agonist. Now these non-selective alpha agonists such as dipivefrin or adrenaline, these drugs decreases the aqueous secretion. Also these drug increases the trabecular outflow and also the uvoscleral outflow. Then we have drugs such as alpha 2 selective agonists such as brimonidine or apraclonidine. These drugs decreases the aqueous secretion and also they increases the uvoscleral outflow. So what we can do, we can select one category of drug and if which decreases the aqueous production or the drug which increases the aqueous outflow. And if one category of drug is not effective, then we can use the combination of two drug which decreases aqueous production and at this another drug which increases the aqueous outflow. So before moving forward, let us understand the mechanism of aqueous humor production and its drainage, because what we have learned till now is that the chief therapeutic option in cases of glaucoma is to lower intraocular pressure either by reducing the secretion of aqueous humor or by promoting its drainage. So we need to know from where the aqueous humor is produced and how it is drained. So aqueous humor is produced from the ciliary process, and once it is produced in the ciliary process, the aqueous comes to the posterior chamber here, and through the posterior chamber through pupil it comes out to the anterior chamber, and once it is in the anterior chamber it gets drained either through the trabecular meshwork or through this uvoscleral outflow through subarachnoid space, through venous circulation of ciliary body, choroid and sclera. So this trabecular meshwork consists of 90% of the drainage of aqueous humor, whereas the uvoscleral outflow consists of 10% of the drainage of aqueous humor. And also let us briefly learn about the receptors involved in the aqueous humor production and the enzymes involved in the aqueous humor production. So mainly the alpha 1 adrenoceptors and alpha 2 adrenoreceptors are apart from beta 2 receptors are involved in the aqueous production. So if alpha 1 adrenoceptor through alpha agonist are uh, constricted, it leads to constriction of ciliary vessels and reduction in aqueous production, and the alpha 2 stimulation leads to reduction in aqueous secretion, because alpha 2 receptors are basically autoreceptors, and stimulation of alpha 2 receptor actually reduces the aqueous secretion, and then the stimulation of beta 2 receptors located on ciliary epithelium enhances the aqueous secretion by increasing the cyclic AMP. So if we block beta 2 receptors by using beta blockers, it will reduce the aqueous secretion. And then the enzyme, that is carbonic anhydrase enzyme, that is present within the ciliary epithelial cell, it generates the bicarbonate ion and it enhances the aqueous humor production. So if we block the carbonic anhydrase enzyme, their blockade will reduce the aqueous humor secretion. So first, understand about the first category of drug that increases the aqueous outflow. So what are the drugs that increases the aqueous humor outflow? So as we were discussing, primarily the drugs which increases the aqueous humor outflow, the first category was of miotics or parasympathomimetics such as pilocarpine or physostigmine. And then the second category of drug was the prostaglandin analogs. So let us first discuss about miotics. So what is its mechanism of action? So the first thing that the miotic does, they narrows the pupil by stimulation of M3 receptors of the sphincter pupillae. So this contraction of sphincter pupillae, what it does, this contraction of sphincter pupillae actually changes the direction of forces in the iris to lessen, and it actually widen the iridocorneal angle. And apart from that, it also contracts the ciliary muscle. So this contraction of ciliary muscle, what it does, contraction of ciliary muscle opens up the trabecular meshwork around the canal of Schlemm. And this opening of trabecular meshwork around the canal of Schlemm, what it does, it will facilitate the drainage of aqueous humor. So overall, what is happening? Both these mechanisms of the contraction of sphincter pupillae and this contraction of ciliary muscle, overall they are decreasing the intraocular pressure. By what it is doing, they are actually widening the iridocorneal angle, dilating the canal of Schlemm, facilitating the drainage of aqueous humor. So all these things are actually leading to decrease in intraocular pressure. Now, one interesting thing that you should know is that the two mechanisms that we were discussing about miotics, the one mechanism of contraction of sphincter pupillae and the another mechanism of contraction of ciliary muscle, both these mechanisms are separately responsible for their effects in acute angle closure glaucoma and in open angle glaucoma. In angle closure glaucoma, this contraction of sphincter pupillae ultimately widening the iridocorneal angle. This mechanism is responsible to reduce the intraocular pressure and ultimately removing the pupillary block and widening the iridocorneal angle. And so ultimately what it does, it reduces the intraocular pressure. Whereas in open angle glaucoma, this contraction of ciliary muscle actually improves the trabecular patency and enhances that aqueous outflow. So that is mainly responsible for decreasing the intraocular pressure in cases of open angle glaucoma. Now, what is the wherein we can use miotics, or what is its role in treatment of glaucoma nowadays? Now, unfortunately, because of better availability of because of availability of better drugs, and because of certain side effects associated with miotics, it is only used as a last therapeutic option in cases of primary open angle glaucoma. Because of availability of other drugs such as beta blockers or prostaglandin analogs, because if you compare miotics with beta blocker, actually because it changes the pupil size, ultimately leading to reduction in vision in dim light and in patients with cataract. So, and also this induced myopia can be troublesome in young patients. So these are the undesirable features of miotics. Also, it can cause headache or brow pain due to persistent spasm of iris and ciliary muscles. And also sometimes it leads to fluctuation in intraocular pressure. So because of all these reasons, miotics are not the first line drug or first choice drug in cases of glaucoma. Uh, then let us come to second category of drug, which is in fact uh, 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 a first line drug for cases of open angle glaucoma, and this category of drug is prostaglandin analog. And in this we have drugs such as latanoprost, bimatoprost, and travoprost. Now, what has been seen is that in low concentration of prostaglandin have been found to lower the intraocular pressure without inducing the ocular inflammation. And the major mechanism of action of prostaglandin analog, they actually acts by increasing the uveoscleral outflow, possibly by increasing the permeability of tissues in the ciliary muscles, or by an action on episcleral vessels. A minor effect on trabecular outflow has also been demonstrated, but that is not very marked, that is only very less significant. And the good thing about prostaglandin analog, because of which it is preferred nowadays, is that it causes less systemic side effect. And allergy, incidence of allergy is extremely rare. And most of the side effects are mostly local and cosmetic, such as iris pigmentation, or periorbital darkening, or eyelash growth or thickening. Now, if you compare prostaglandins with beta blockers, what we see that the 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 decrease in intraocular pressure with prostaglandin analog is similar to that of beta blockers such as timolol, and it can lead to maximum intraocular pressure reduction in the range of 25 to 35%. And compared to beta blockers, because beta blocker, particularly the non-selective beta blocker, have a tendency to cause systemic side effect. Because of that, uh, prostaglandin analogs are preferred as a first line treatment in open angle glaucoma. So as I was telling you, there are certain advantages of prostaglandin analogs such as latanoprost or bimatoprost, because of which they are preferred as a first line therapeutic option for open angle glaucoma. And one of the most important thing with with prostaglandin analog is the absence of systemic adverse effect. As I was telling you, the adverse effects are mostly local, and because its efficacy is similar to timolol, it can lower intraocular pressure in the range of 25 to 35%, and it has got sustained effect, because of it once daily dose is sufficient. So because of all these reasons, they are the preferred therapeutic option in cases of primary open angle glaucoma nowadays. Now let us discuss about the second category of drugs that decreases the aqueous production. Now in this category, the first drug class that we will discuss are beta blockers, such as timolol. And this topical beta blocker have been the first line drug for glaucoma till recently. But as I have told you, nowadays prostaglandin analogs are the preferred therapeutic option. Yes, overall, if you compare beta blockers with miotics, beta blocker have got a better side effect profile, or are the preferred therapeutic option compared to miotics in cases of open angle glaucoma, because in contrast to miotic, the beta blocker do not affect the pupil size, or they do not affect the tone of ciliary muscles or the outflow facility. So they mainly reduce the intraocular pressure by reducing the aqueous formation. As I was telling you, beta blockers, they uh, uh, they block the beta receptor, mainly this beta 2 receptors in the ciliary body, and this blocking of beta 2 receptor, actually what it does, it downregulates the cyclic AMP. So ultimately there is decreased aqueous secretion, and ultimately leading to decrease in intraocular pressure. And it's so what are the advantages and disadvantages of beta blocker? Advantages, yes, advantages compared to miotics, it has got certain advantages. And most important advantage that I have told you earlier is that they do not affect the pupil size, do not affect the tone of the ciliary muscle or the outflow facility, and they also do not lead to headache, as the miotic can cause persistent spasm of ciliary muscle and iris, leading to headache. And also in some cases it has been seen that fluctuation in intraocular pressure can occur with pilocarpine drops. And also compared to miotics, only once or twice daily administration of beta blockers are sufficient. So because of these, the beta blockers are the preferred therapeutic option compared to miotics. But there are certain disadvantages, particularly with the non-systemic beta blocker. And one disadvantage is that it can lead to life-threatening bronchospasm, particularly in bronchial asthma patient and in COPD patient. So it should not be used in bronchial asthma or COPD. And also it can accentuate the heart failure, it can accentuate the heart block. So it is not a preferred therapeutic option in those patients. So among beta blocker, we have drugs such as timolol, which was in 1978 first approved topical beta blocker for glaucoma. And one good thing about uh, timolol is that it has got no local anesthetic or intrinsic sympathomimetic effect, and the effect starts within 1 hour and it lasts for up to 12 hours, and it can lead to around 20 to 35% fall in intraocular pressure. So because of this these advantages, it is most widely used as an ocular hypotensive drug. But as I was telling you, the problem with drugs such as timolol is that because these are non-selective beta blockers, it can lead to bronchospasm, or it can accentuate the heart failure. So you have to be cautious while using in those category of patient, or better it is advisable not to use drugs such as timolol in those patients. So other drug in this category is cartilol or levobunolol. Then to overcome the disadvantages of non-selective beta blocker, in 1980s the first selective beta blocker that acted selectively on the beta 1 receptor was launched, and it was known as betaxolol. But if you compare it with timolol, it has been seen that it leads to lesser reduction in intraocular pressure. And the reason might be because the ocular beta receptors are mainly beta 2 subtypes. So that's why this blockage of blocking the beta 1 receptor mainly cannot be that much effective. But the advantage with betaxolol is that it can the chances of bronchospasm or other systemic side effect that is seen with timolol are less likely to happen with betaxolol, and it has got additional neuroprotective effect. It has got additional neuroprotective effect on retinal neurons, and it has been said that it might be due to blocking of some calcium channel or reducing of sodium calcium influx. So it has been advised that uh, in certain categories of patient wherein you are thinking that it might not be very much suitable, or it might not be very safe to start with timolol, what you can do, you can start with betoxolol and then change over to timolol if the IOT control is insufficient. But again, the you have to be ready that uh, that uh, betaxolol compared to timolol leads to lesser reduction in intraocular pressure. Then the second category of drug which reduces the aqueous humor production is carbonic anhydrase inhibitor. In this we have two categories of drugs. One is systemic and another is topical. Systemic carbonic anhydrase inhibitor such as acetazolamide. Now the problem with acetazolamide is that it can lead to lots of systemic side effects such as hypokalemia, acidosis, depression, paresthesia, anorexia. So because of all these adverse effects, the long-term use of acetazolamide like drug in cases of glaucoma is not advisable. So it has been advised that such drug should only be used as an additive therapy for short term in cases of glaucoma. And among systemic carbonic anhydrase inhibitor and topical carbonic anhydrase inhibitor, the topical carbonic anhydrase inhibitor such as brinzolamide is better tolerated. and how they act. The carbonic anhydrase inhibitor, they inhibit the enzyme carbonic anhydrase, and this carbonic anhydrase is actually an enzyme involved in aqueous production, and it causes the bicarbonate and hydrogen movement. And this inhibition of carbonic anhydrase, it blocks the active transport needed for the aqueous production, ultimately uh, leading to reduction in aqueous production, and ultimately it leads to reduction in intraocular pressure. Now the third category of drugs which decreases both aqueous production and increases the aqueous outflow, in this we have adrenergic agonist. First, we will discuss about the non-selective adrenergic agonist which acts upon both alpha 1 and alpha 2. Now, this alpha 1 stimulation, it constricts the ciliary vessels and reduces the aqueous production. And alpha 2 stimulation, it leads to reduction in aqueous production because of the autoreceptor nature of this alpha 2 receptors. And but the problem with the non-selective adrenergic agonists such as adrenaline is that it can lead to irritation and reactive hyperemia. So because of this, adrenaline is not a preferred choice for reducing the intraocular pressure. Rather, what we can do, we can use a pro drug of adrenaline which is known as dipivefrin. Now, dipivefrin is formed by diesterification of epinephrine, and it is more lipophilic. Its corneal penetration is 17 times more than adrenaline. So how this dipivefrin does act, how it acts, it it reduces both the aqueous production, and also the secondary role of dipivefrin is to increase the UV scleral outflow. So it reduces the aqueous production by acting on alpha 1 and alpha 2 receptor, and it also increases the UV scleral outflow. So compared to adrenaline, dipivefrin is better tolerated, but still it can lead to certain side effects such as follicular conjunctivitis, blurring of vision, stinging. So it is advisable that these drugs can only be used or should only be used as an add-on therapy. Then the second option is of using selective alpha 2 agonist. Now this selective alpha 2 agonist, because it selectively acts upon alpha 2 agonist, they decreases the aqueous humor production by its action on alpha 2 receptors located on the ciliary epithelium. And also it has been seen that it also enhances the UV scleral outflow. So in this category we have drugs such as apraclonidine or brimonidine. Apraclonidine is also known as para-aminoclonidine. Uh, it can be used for a short-term period in post-operative rise in intraocular pressure or as an adjuvant in open-angle glaucoma. So let us summarize the general treatment options for glaucoma. Before that, we will briefly understand what actually open angle glaucoma is. In open angle glaucoma, the major problem is this gradual blockage in the trabecular meshwork. And because of this dysfunction in the normal drainage system, what it causes, it leads to increase in intraocular pressure to build up gradually. And most of the patients are asymptomatic, but they come to the ophthalmologist once they start noticing some abnormality in their visual field. So this increase in intraocular pressure because of this gradual blockage in the trabecular meshwork, it leads to increase in intraocular pressure leading to progressive loss of visual field from periphery to center, and there is cupping and atrophy of optic disc. But in open angle glaucoma, the anterior chamber angle is actually open. So what are the treatment options for open angle glaucoma? The current approach in cases of open angle glaucoma is to start the monotherapy with prostaglandin analog. You can start monotherapy with either prostaglandin analog such as latanoprost or with topical beta blocker such as timolol. And if target intraocular pressure is not achieved, you can change over to the alternative drug, or you can use both the above drug at the same time. Now, what are the other therapeutic option? The other therapeutic option in cases of open angle glaucoma is to use drugs such as brimonidine or dorzolamide, or occasionally you can use drugs such as dipivefrin. So brimonidine, dorzolamide or dipivefrin can be used only when there are contraindication to either prostaglandin analog or beta blockers, or you can use these drugs to supplement the action of either prostaglandin analog or of beta blocker. Uh, Topical miotics such as physostigmine or pilocarpine or the oral acetazolamide are only used as a last therapeutic option. When all the options have failed or have not worked properly, then you can move over to the topical miotics or oral acetazolamide. Now, let us quickly discuss about the closed angle glaucoma. In cases of closed angle glaucoma, the normal drainage system is suddenly blocked because of apposition of iris and trabecular meshwork, and this complete occlusion of drainage angle result in sudden elevation of intraocular pressure up to 40 to 60 mmHg at a very rapid rate. So complete blindness can occur within 3 to 5 days. And in most of the cases, parasympatholytics, which leads to pupillary dilation, usually precipitate the attack, particularly in patients with narrow iridocorneal angle. And patient usually complains of nausea, headache, general distress, and it is an acute emergency and it requires immediate treatment. So, what are the therapeutic options for angle closure glaucoma or acute congestive glaucoma? As I was telling you, it is an emergency condition. It requires an immediate management. So the treatment of choice is either the surgical option or through the laser. But the thing is, before you proceed for surgical procedure, the IOP should be reduced by the drug therapy, because if you fail to reduce the intraocular pressure very quickly, it can lead to permanent loss of vision. So medical therapy is started as an emergency to lower the intraocular pressure and for resolution of corneal edema, so that ultimately we can perform the surgical option or the other therapeutic option that are available. So you have to rapidly reduce the intraocular pressure. So you can start the therapy with osmotic agents such as hypertonic mannitol or glycerol. So infused IV, they will decongest the eye by their osmotic action. Additionally, you can use IV acetazolamide followed by the oral acetazolamide, and then once the intraocular pressure starts falling due to the above intravenous therapy, you can start the treatment with miotics such as pilocarpine. So what this pilocarpine will do, it will lead to contraction of sphincter pupillae, ultimately leading to widening of iridocorneal angle. So ultimately it will help in reducing the intraocular pressure. You can add timolol in addition to miotic in cases of acute congestive glaucoma. The other option is of prostaglandin analog such as latanoprost. So we have one case of a patient diagnosed with open angle glaucoma who presented uh, with a history of gradual painless loss of vision, and on examination his intraocular pressure was increased and it was diagnosed as open angle glaucoma. So the therapeutic options, what will be the therapeutic option? The therapeutic option will be same as that we have discussed earlier. So you can start the treatment with prostaglandin analog or with beta blocker. Then it is a case of acute congestive glaucoma. A patient suddenly developed pain in the right eye, blurring of vision, and uh, on examination it was there was increase in intraocular pressure. So how you will treat it? It was diagnosed as a case of acute congestive glaucoma. So you have to uh, start vigorous therapy by hypertonic mannitol, by IV acetazolamide, and then you have to also, once the intraocular pressure starts lowering down, you have to start miotics such as pilocarpine. You can add topical beta blockers such as timolol, and also you can add latanoprost. So this is what we have discussed about the pharmacotherapy of glaucoma. I hope you have understood the things, and so thank you.